Good people, what's up? What's good, y'all? Blessed be your host, Caleb Smith. We are back with another edition of Chllin with Caleb. As you guys know, this week has been crazy in the headlines. First off, man, before we even get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for always tuning in to our content, our platform of trying to build something for our people that's by us and that gives us real information and real solutions. So thank y'all for joining this family, all the subscribers. We're about to hit 42K because of very great and special people such as yourself. So I just want to tip my hat to y'all, say thank you for always engaging with the content, sharing, because that's what it's for, is for building community. So thank you for joining us in this journey of help to make this thing happen and growing this. But on Wednesday, as most of you all know, right? Unless you've been living under a rock, Wednesday, September 10th, Charlie Kirk, he was killed. I first saw it on Twitter. My cousin, he had DM me in our cousin group chat. And when he had first told me that Charlie Kirk, he was shot, I'm like, okay, he was shot, but I didn't think that he was murdered, he was killed. And when I went to Twitter, I was like, man, seeing that in real time to where he was shot in the jugular. Initially, when you first see that video, what comes to mind is this was a professional job. But before we get into all the logistics and conspiracy theories, right? Let's focus on the facts here. The major fact that bothers me the most is, as Black people, we are looked at and expected to be the moral compass of America at all times. Even when supremacists and white supremacists don't understand that they're doing such actions. Case in point. When Charlie Kirk was first murdered, many Black people and myself felt very indifferent about it. Like, it is what it is, because when you have a person that preaches hate, when you have a person that doesn't see the issues in gun violence in this country, and ironically enough, while he's answering a question about gun violence, he finds a way to convolute the conversation to then talk about Black on Black crime, and then boom, he's shot in the neck, in the jugular. That's very symbolic, because you were murdered and killed by a white man, allegedly, in a white state, arguably one of the whitest states, if not the whitest state in the United States of America. But yet Black people were still on your tongue for your dying breath. We never talk about this high level of obsession that white America has with Black people. And it's very funny because in one breath, Black people are always viewed as the problem, but why are Black people always on your mind? White supremacy cannot exist without Blackness. And that's something that irks them, because their very existence, their very concept of who they are comes from being over somebody else who is Black. Whiteness is defined by Blackness. If Black people are doing bad, then that means I'm doing good because I'm white. They have to have some type of barometer to measure where they are and who they are. They have to know that they're doing better because they start from this Ice Age mindset of, we are dealing with limited resources. So I must take my power onto you to get what I need, or really what I want, not even what I need. And that is that colonizer mentality that Charlie Kirk had. Charlie Kirk wasn't up there asking and talking about solutions. His solutions consisted of the Black problem. The individual asking Charlie Kirk the question about gun violence, Charlie Kirk talks about how many of those mass shooters are trans. This mass shooter concept really infuriates me, because we talk about mass shooters, but we don't go further in depth. And let me rephrase that. Not even we, white America, doesn't. You have a group of said individuals that keep practicing the same behavior of mass shootings, but we ignore those behaviors as lone wolves. We ignore those behaviors as, oh, this one's trans, or this one's this, that one's that, instead of saying this is a white male. Because if we then admit that, we then have to admit that there's some violence going on within our community as well. We then have to admit that we aren't perfect. Whiteness is this idea of perfection, which then ties into their religion of Christianity. And I'm not talking about the true form of Christianity. I'm talking about American Christianity, which is the religion. That is a religion that is driven, and their whole religion is white supremacy. Hence, that's why you have the white Jesus. That's why you have the white Jesus with the American flag. I highly encourage anybody who's listening, who's viewing, to please look up. If I'm not mistaken, because I've had to drive through this county plenty of times. I think it's Byron County, Byron County in Georgia. And I might have misspelled it, but I think it's spelled like that. It's either Byron or Bryan, Bryan County, Georgia. They have multiple billboards of a white Jesus. Mind you, you drive past a plantation house that they still have open. They still have people come and view. This is in South Georgia, I believe. And you see cotton fields, all of these things. But another thing that you see is white Jesus with an AK-47 in one hand and the lamb in another hand, and white Jesus with the long blonde hair, blue eyes. My question to the person who created that and to people who don't see a problem with that, what message are you trying to send? That image within itself confirms the idea of white supremacy, and white supremacy being their religion. That we know in the Bible he's described as a black man. Kinky hair, right? Lamb's wool. Feet as if it burned in a furnace, right? Brass as if it burned in a furnace. That's black. So we know all of these things, yet for me to still go in and create a white Jesus with a machine gun, put him on that billboard, what message am I sending? That message that I'm sending is white supremacy is the law of today and of tomorrow. That your God is me. I'm your God. And if you're not white, if you don't look like this, and if you don't share these ideologies, you're not American and you're not Christian. So now I have now confirmed both God and country. I've turned them into one. So our God and our country, our religion is white supremacy. If you aren't white and if you're not a white supremacist, can't be on board. They don't want any John Browns. They don't want any white activists who are actually putting their money where their mouth is. No, you need to praise white supremacy. This then ties into our generation, our people. When I see black people that say, well, he had a family. Okay. Robert E. Lee had a family. Hitler had a family. Stonewall Jackson, he had a family. The people who enslaved our people had families too. Your enemy has families. Yes. Okay. But did he care that George Floyd had a family? Did he care that Breonna Taylor had a family? This man was literally saying and talking about black on black crime. He doesn't care that the kids who were murdered, what their situations were. He doesn't care about the context. He doesn't care about nuance. He's looking at everything black and white and saying, well, it is what it is. So if you had that energy towards them, if you said George Floyd died from fentanyl, hey, irony. That's like if I get up here and say, hey, Charlie Kirk died from fentanyl. They would be infuriated because what would they say? No, you saw it on tape. How funny. Our exact sentiments about George Floyd. Our exact sentiments about so many others, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling. We just keep going on and on and on. And we were told it doesn't matter. They did something wrong to put themselves in that situation. We aren't allowed to be given grace, but they are. That shows you misappropriation of power right there. That we are dealing with the wrong power dynamic. That we have to find this moral compass. We have to be understanding. We have to be loving. We have to know all of these things. We have to feel all of these things. But when it comes to you, we have to feel that. But when it comes to us, we get no grace. Why? Because we're viewed as less than. We're viewed as the problem. We must be contained. We've always been a problem in this country because they couldn't contain us. And especially since you aren't enslaved anymore, you're really a problem because I don't know what to do with you. So now I have to blame everything on you. If this country's in a bad condition, it's a black problem. We have to fight crime harder. Who is crime? Black people. Specify, put a name on it, but they can't. Also, it shows you that they understand how dumb their concept is because they can't really say it out loud. This Charlie Kirk situation, right? Having to explain who Charlie Kirk is, they're fumbling the bag with it. He was a bigot. He was a white supremacist. He was a racist, misogynist, so many things. And just because a person is dead, it doesn't clean their legacy. That's why what you do in your life is so important. Because what you do during that dash, from your birth date to the day that you leave this earth, that dash is the most important thing. Because what you do with that dash is what your life and your legacy will always be defined by. We're told to have this understanding of Charlie Kirk. I even heard Myra Gaines say that He got assassinated, and only real revolutionaries get assassinated. Okay, so what about Brother Malcolm? What about Martin Luther King? What about them then? Oh, you have to be white. Let's say that part. Let's specify it a little bit. And that's the thing, y'all. I really want for us to make them explain themselves, make them expound upon their words. Utah's governor, when he says that he had hoped Charlie's killer was one of us. In those moments, we got to ask him, hey, what did you mean by that? We have people like Tyler Robinson, right? Allegedly, who was the shooter. Were you upset that it was because Tyler Robinson was white? That's what my follow-up question would have been. What do you mean by that? Let them dig their own grave. Let them keep talking themselves into a problem. And that's what they're doing right now. They're talking themselves into their next issue. We have to make them expound upon their words. They know that their concept is fragile. It's a very fragile thing. It's so fragile that they have to lead with fear. It's so fragile that they have to make sure that somebody, especially us, is oppressed at all times. Because if you have an equal playing field, what we have will cease to exist. It's that fragile. It's that fragile. That's why they're in such a constant state of paranoia nonstop. Everything has to go this type of way. Because if it doesn't, they can't lose an inch of control. And they've been losing control slowly but surely. Because you built something on a rocky foundation, which they know internally. Hence, all of the paranoia. Hence, a Donald Trump that comes in. Then you have your Charlie Kirks and so many others to amplify that message, to regroup and rebuild upon their foundation of white supremacy. But what the biggest problem is, that foundation has been so weak for so long. That's why there's been so many wars, so much strife, so much conflict, because what they have is something that wasn't supposed to exist in the first place because it doesn't come from real substance. So you're fighting to maintain this antiquated idea that wasn't supposed to be an idea to begin with in the very beginning. So it's time for a change. And they know that change is coming. They know that the end is coming. They know it. They feel it. And for Charlie to be killed by one of his own shows you how fragile their concept of white supremacy is. That they can't even agree amongst each other on how to oppress us. How funny is that? They can't agree amongst each other how to oppress us. They're so obsessed with us that they will fight each other. Civil war. This is what this has become, that it's become this weak, fragile identity. It's become this weak concept that you have to kill and harm people to even protect that concept. The fact that there's so many mass shootings that take place monthly at this point. Let's talk about annually, right? This isn't normal. But why are these things happening? Why is it a high proclivity of white men that's doing these mass shootings? And then when you start reading the manifestos, all these other documents from these shooters, you start reading things about race war and this, that, and the third, and talking about black people, but then you killed a white person. Why are you so obsessed? Because you know where the true power is. You know that if these people get together, that it's only a matter of time. It's inevitable. Your demise is inevitable, and they know that. And that's one of the worst feelings because they're on borrowed time. So if I'm on borrowed time, how do I constantly build up more fear? How do I constantly put that stress onto you? And for us to think, I see certain black people, if you act a certain way, that you'll be accepted. Respectability politics will not save you as a black person. You can find pictures of our people being lynched in suits, lynched in their military uniforms. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how well-spoken you are. And even that concept means that you're trying to prove yourself to white people, to the white social structure, to be accepted. But even if they do accept you, they never truly accept you for your fullest capacity, rather. Because at your fullest capacity, you're black. And I don't want you to act black. I want you to act like me. I want you to be like me. And then I control you. And I still don't respect you because you cower to me. So it's a lose-lose regardless. So you might as well be true to yourself true to your people, true to your God. But Charlie Kirk, just seeing this, it's very interesting and really just to sit back and observe how we view the world. And I saw somebody has said, all of my white friends said that they didn't do politics or talk about politics, but after seeing their reaction to the Charlie Kirk death, I see that that wasn't true. And I could see that. I saw Pat McAfee saying this is a time for us to come together, but Charlie Kirk wasn't trying to bring people together. And I always get mad at that. Like when white people or people who are racist, when they try to say, hey, let's come together. No. It's too late for that. You can't spew hatred. You can't spew violence that then infiltrates people who are susceptible to that information, who then go out and practice that same violence that you're preaching. We're not going for that. Black people, man, we can't be nice no more. That has to go out the window because at the end of the day, it's about survival. And these people do not have our best interests at heart. White supremacists do not have our best interests at heart. Even when Charlie Kirk was murdered, to still blame the left, which you're then also trying to blame black people, and then HBCUs are getting death threats. What do we have to do with Utah? But that shows you that they can't even hold their own ills, that they then have to blame a black person or black people because it's the white man's burden to have to be in control of this entire world because we're just out of control. When we say that Charlie Kirk was a man of God, are we sure? Because a racist having to see a black Jesus when he goes to heaven is one hell of a sight. The very thing that you hate the most is the God that created your universe. Think about how heavy that is. The very thing and people that you hate the most, the God that you say that you pray to, looks like them. There's a verse in the Bible where Jesus saying like, or God, that you can't say that you love me, but you don't love your brother that you see every day. You don't see me. So if you hate the people that you see, right, how can you love me, who you don't see? And this then poses the question that I want for us to really sit with. If a racist went to heaven and found out that Jesus was black when they see him face to face, would they even choose to stay? Sit with that. If Charlie Kirk sees the face of God and sees a black man, black woman, black person, right? Would he choose to stay in heaven? Or would he say that God was a DEI hire too? And I don't mean to be funny here, but I'm saying that white supremacy is that fragile, is that idiotic, is that hypocritical, that you consider yourself a Christian, a man of God, high IQ, but you don't even read your Bible to its fullest extent to see that Jesus is a black man and that you're reading about black people that's in Africa. Talking about Northeast Africa, Egypt, right? That's Africa in the Bible. You're talking about all these other places. Israel is on the African tectonic plate. This Middle East concept is a very new concept. So when we say these things and all of this, I really want for people to understand that we sound crazy when we say that Charlie Kirk was a man of God. We sound crazy trying to empathize with white supremacists who, if you died as a black person, he would blame you for your death. If you died at the hands of the police, any of that, he would find a way to blame you. But in return, we find a way to exclude him of the blame. Let's not be Stephen from Django, guys. And we have to unlearn and honestly detach ourselves from white supremacy, from being comfortable with white supremacy. We've become too comfortable with it. We've always fought back, but I'm saying it's time for us to really understand what's going on here. White supremacy is fighting itself because it's that idiotic. They talk about black on black crime, deploying troops to out here, out there, to Chicago, Memphis, this place, that place. What about Utah? You just had one of your people get shot live on camera by another white person. And we're not talking about sending troops out there. Why? Because it's white. That's what I mean about let's expound upon these things, because that's a white area. But that shows you how crazy this is. That they're saying that we're the problem, but you literally had one of your people in your cabin, murdered in 4K in front of everybody while trying to explain that we're the problem. They have been the problem from day one on this soil in America. White supremacists have been an issue since day one on this soil. However, Black people are then blamed. The people that you stole, the people that you killed, and R-word, all these things, they're the problem, not us. And that's why there's been such a push to hide the history, the accounts, the stories, everything's DEI, this, that, and the third. Because once you read, once you research, once information is shared, we're exposed. Don't you find that so interesting that, especially as Black Americans here in America, information, history is always hidden? It's always hidden. Because if you can understand and strategize what happened in the past, you can understand and strategize for the present, and then we can build for our future, for our babies. That's their fear, is to really understand who and what we're dealing with. Because then once you start to learn about the lynchings, you see this, you see that play, you see this going on, then you start seeing and really comprehending what we're dealing with here. This idea of white supremacy has become a religion for them that they will kill and die for a concept that isn't even true, but it's a concept that makes them feel whole. And the part that we don't talk about is white supremacist ideology makes the poor white man that's in a trailer park that would never, ever have the chance to be associated or breathe the same air as a Donald Trump or as a Charlie Kirk or as an affluent white man. Unless we're talking about Black people, unless we're talking about oppressing people, that's where we bond. We bond off of whiteness. Bacon's Rebellion. I tell people that all the time, man. In real time, we're seeing a repeat of Bacon's Rebellion, where they are being fearful now of white people, Black people. We saw it with Fred Hampton, where the working class start to talk and start to realize who that common enemy is. But we're at a point right now that as Black people, we have become insulated to even protect ourselves first before we even talk about merging. And that's what we got to think about, is self-preservation as well. Because we're the constant subject matter to be attacked. So we have to take those accusations seriously. And for all of my Black Christians out there too, y'all, I'm not trying to bash on our people at all, but for Black Christians that's not pro-liberation and who are posting about having a heart, being Christian, all of these things, that will get you killed. That would get you harmed. Because by walking around with your guard down thinking that these people don't view you as your enemy, you're walking around defenseless, not understanding what you're walking into. George Washington was a Christian. Thomas Jefferson was a Christian. Sally Mae Hemings, do you think that when Thomas Jefferson was sleeping with a 12-year-old, impregnating her and enslaving her, he was a Christian? Robert E. Lee, he was a Christian. They were all Christians too. That's why, man, I say, like, as a Black person, your religion doesn't save you. You were given this religion. That's the point. When you say, oh, I'm a Christian, so I can't. Yes, you can. We can be honest and we can be factual, because in the school system, they tell us who to hate, right? I remember in school growing up, even Malcolm X was considered controversial, which is insane to think, but Charlie Kirk isn't. Y'all don't see a major discrepancy in that. You don't see that? You don't see inconsistencies? That's white supremacy, to make you even question your own humanity, to make you even question who your enemy is off of maintaining the idea and the concept of white supremacy. We have a major problem because you aren't even preserving self first. You're preserving your oppressor. So you're going against the first law of nature. They have done that hell of a job to make you go against preserving yourself to defending their honor. This is the overall danger of what white supremacy can do to your psyche, your understanding of knowing what's going on. All of that is by not understanding that this is warfare. Charlie Kirk, if he was still alive today, would still be traveling the country, still be going and flying to the White House, talking to Donald Trump, implementing policies that harm Black people. Charlie Kirk did not have your best interest in mind. He didn't care about who you were, your family, anything. You were black, you were a problem. That's what we have to understand. We have to really learn and really come together as a consistency of saying, hey, they don't tell us what and who and how we should feel about things. You know how you feel about this, and it's okay to feel indifferent. That's not a sin to feel like, hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. Because when that happens to us, George Floyd died on camera. He had his knee, Derek Chauvin, I think, 8 minutes, 49 seconds? And they still told you that he died from fentanyl? They try to tell you that? This is what we're dealing with. That you could see a person who looks like you dying on camera and they tell you, nah, that's not the case. That's not what you saw, fam. That's not real. Basically, that's not real, fam. That's what we're dealing with. So, us as a people, man, we just got to come together during these times. We just got to love on each other as a people. Black Americans, man, especially, and understand what we're going up against. We can't allow religion, or just because we live in the suburbs now, to control your reality of not understanding what racism is. Because as a Black American, you not understanding racism will get you harmed. You getting too comfortable will get you harmed. Jonathan Majors, we saw that with his career. You can't get too comfortable. Shannon Sharp can't get too comfortable as a Black American. You always got to think 10 steps ahead. And we always have to understand that every single day that you walk out of your house, out of that door, there are people intentionally throwing things in your way to make sure that you don't make it and that your people don't make it. Because that's their sole purpose. Your progress means regression for them. So I got to make sure that you stay confined within a certain bracket, within a certain living condition, all of these things, to make sure that you don't reach your fullest potential. That's when things get dangerous. That's when things get murky, right? So we really got to look at this Charlie Kirk situation with aerial lens. And the shooter, of course, we saw from 200 plus yards away, hit him in the neck. That thing was precise. As we know, the initial suspect, we already knew that wasn't viable. Even the second one, I feel like it was more hands at play. I even think that possibly this could have came from Trump's side. Who knows, to spark more of this ethos of we're at war, right? Because I feel like Trump's failed assassination attempt, I felt like that was orchestrated. So who's to say that Charlie Kirk's wasn't as well, to where it's orchestrated to drive more passion, right? I would say, for lack of better terms, of people who want to get behind what's going on. And that way you strengthen up your base. That way you make sure that people are loyal to this party, that people now feel as though we're being ostracized, we're being attacked. That's why we must band together. Togetherness is then raised even higher. But these are very interesting times. These are times that, of course, will be studied and talked about. But it's showing how fragile whiteness is. All the white people that are crying and upset, this is what this has led to. These are the same people, right? Martin Luther King assassinated by the US government. That was proven in 1998. That tell us to preach a message of peace. Be like Dr. King, right? Preach peace. But he was still assassinated. Whiteness is a thing, y'all, that I never want for people to, especially our people, to comfort yourself or try to change who you are, right? To be more accepted into white spaces. I'm not saying, of course, act crazy, no, but I'm saying like it's something to where you will always be chasing that feeling or chasing that acceptance that's never gonna come. That's never gonna come simply because you're Black. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how professional, how qualified you are. If anything, sometimes that further intimidates them. So we really have to come to terms with that. In this time, is so polarizing. Like, people have truly exposed themselves. Either you're on this side of truth or that side of oppression and racism and white supremacy. It's that simple. You can't say, oh, I don't do politics anymore, because everything is political now. Always has been, but now it's undeniable, especially in the new age of social media. Lock them up, that sound, right? On TikTok. Seeing that, the origins of that whole backstory, the business owner right now, he's trying to save tail racist white dude because you were being racist towards a black guy who was so happened to be TikTok famous, who was trying to go fishing, and you said private property, which is another word for white property. It's too polarizing right now. And black people are speaking with our dollars now. That's one thing I really got to give us. When you look at Target, that whole situation, that auto shop in North Carolina, I believe, that was talking racist and crazy in front of a black customer. She said, yo, pull my car up right now. I'm not doing this. I ain't fooling with y'all. They were like, no, man, wait. She said, no, I'm out. So black people are speaking with their dollars. That same business is now about to go out of business. So I love seeing that because we have to speak with our dollars. We often forget, y'all, with the civil rights movement, especially in Montgomery, the Montgomery bus cop was an economic movement. And not only that, they had a backup plan, a contingency plan on how to carpool, transportation, all of that. We have to have that same attention to detail. We have to. And also I'm seeing right now, the older generation has to accept the younger generation in the black community. I was just having this conversation with my guy Steve-O, man. Shout out to DJ Steve-O, Mommy Popo, man. But we were just talking a few days ago, me and Steve-O, and we were like, bro, the corporate generation, our parents' generation, sometimes gets in the way. Because the greatest thing that white America, one of their smartest things ever, I would say, hands down, was creating this corporate generation. What do you mean by that, Caleb? In the black community, especially here in Atlanta, most of our parents worked in corporate America. Most of our parents got to live the true American dream. They were able to go to college. Most of them were first gen college students. They go to college, they get their degree. Most of them with just a bachelor's could get a high paying job because just having a college degree was considered very impressive. Don't let them get a master's, a doctorate, then they're really in there in the corporate sector. And they're now accepted amongst white Americans in these white corporate spaces. So they feel like, okay, I've made it. I've moved out to a white suburb. I have my Mercedes. My kids play in this league, that league. They're playing sports. They go to the top schools. And these are the top schools because they're white schools. So you start to feel like you're a part of their community. You start to feel like you've made it. And even it gets to a point, I've seen this firsthand, to where you start seeing, oh, there's starting to be there's too many black people in this neighborhood now. And you're saying this as a black person. Or it's too many black people at this school. Or it's too many black people that don't act like me in this school or that's in this neighborhood. And you start to think like you're an oppressor. So that's what we've seen too with these same people in this age group post about having a heart, having empathy. Because they've learned to accept those racist jokes, those microaggressions at the water cooler, making coffee. But now, our generation, we have grown up in a time, when I was in high school, Trayvon Martin, that was happening, where you're seeing this stuff in real time and there's no not talking about it because it's real. But our parents' generation, especially, I'm talking about that generation that was born late 50s, early 60s, they really had that opportunity to be accepted into these white spaces, these corporate spaces, and they were making good money. They were living in a nice neighborhood. So they were living that American dream. So it was hard for them to really talk too much or go too in on racism because they were living a great life. And white supremacy, the social structure, that was a genius chess move because now you've built a fracture between the parents and the children. Because now our generation, we're growing up in a terrible job market. Economy's bad. You see police killings. I mean, 2020 alone was insane, to where racism is something that we can't not really talk about. This American dream is a nightmare. DEI, right? You see these programs getting pulled where they had affirmative action. And now we're going in reverse to where these programs are being taken away. So now we got to work 10 times harder just to receive less. Colleges, everything has changed. So now you're dealing with another generation that was like the generation of the civil rights era that is forced to make a decision of saying no more. That generation of the civil rights era, Emmett Till happens. They're like, that's it. Rosa Parks happens. Okay, that's it for real. You start seeing the sit-ins from our students of North Carolina A&T. Like, this is Black excellence. That's beauty. And I think that our generation right now, we're gonna have a choice. We're in a pivotal time, just like in the civil rights era, to where we can't be lullabied to sleep anymore. We have to do something. We have to stand for something, because what we do now affects our grandchildren. I'm not even talking about our children. This affects our grandchildren, these moments right now. It's up to us. It's up to us to use our voices, use our platforms, use our talents and our gifts for the upliftment of our people. That's what we got to be on right now. That's what we have to do, because playtime is over. Karen Hunter, she was talking about this on In Class with Carr, and I love Karen Hunter, but she was saying even our artists right now who are making music, if the music isn't uplifting, if it's not substance in the music, we don't have time for that no more. We don't have time for anything that is non-constructive. We have to be building. That's what we have to be focused on, is building. Because this is what the times demand for. This is what they call for. It's for change. Our ancestors are calling for it. Our future children and grandchildren, they're calling for it. It's time for change, positive change. And it's up to us to make that change happen. I'm not saying be inhumane, but we have to understand, as humans, if we look and compare at all the atrocities that's been done to our people in just America alone, you are not insane for feeling indifferent about Charlie Kirk. What that means is you have a mind, you have a brain. George Washington and the founding fathers, when they had the Revolutionary War, the British Army and the British soldiers that they were fighting against and who they were killing, they had families too. But George Washington and Americana, American culture, we praise them because they were what? They were brave. So why is brave and being brave and courage and all these things only attributed to whiteness? But anytime that Black people say, hey, that was our oppressor, that was a bad person, oh no, have a heart. 9/11 though, never forget. That's hypocrisy. That's hypocrisy in its purest form of saying how we should feel to Black people. And that's white supremacy in its purest form as well. But it's time for positive change. People are tired in America as well. Once people start going hungry and they see that you living good, eating good, people are tired in America. We are witnessing a Great Depression, and it's not being talked about. People are tired. People are working 2-3 jobs, exhausted. So when they see hatred and bigotry and foolishness going on, people are tired. And the worst thing that they can do is tire the American people, and they don't have any solutions except for more racism. And that's something that's burning, it's fading. Those days are coming to an end, soon come. We just have to keep building and keep fighting. In closing, man, I want to give a real shout out in respects to a real activist, a real one. Joseph McNeil, one of 4 of the college students of North Carolina A&T who practiced the sit-in demonstrations. That's a real activist. Sacrificed his life over 65 years ago, 1960, at the sit-in counters. To sit at the counter of the diner back then in 1960, seeing those pictures of Joseph McNeil, his comrades, I'm like, man, that takes real bravery. That takes real courage. So although we talked about Charlie Kirk in this episode, seeing that post on social media about Joseph McNeil's passing and seeing a person say, hey, we need to highlight this as well, because this is a real activist while we were over there talking about Charlie Kirk. I wanted to replicate that as well, because that's important. At the end of each Chllin with Caleb, I will give you guys a Black history fact. Joseph McNeil, I wanted to first highlight him. In the following episodes, I got y'all. We will cover Black history at the end of every episode because it's needed. That's how we constantly learn, we have fun, and we engage. Joseph McNeil, to his family, Major Joseph McNeil, to his family, his friends, everybody, I show love, I show respect, and I honor you for now being an ancestor among us. But those are the people that we have to salute and tip our hats to. The people that's actually causing change. The people that actually put in the work and did something for the love of their people And really, he did something for our people and people at large. That's beautiful. That's somebody that's worth highlighting. Somebody that did something out of inconvenience to make our lives more convenient. That's power. That's love right there. So, Joseph McNeil, I salute you, brother. North Carolina A&T, shout out to the Aggies, man. Much love, but shout out to my guy Zay, a professor there as well. But I thank y'all. I love y'all for always tuning in, showing love, and just having great conversations. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll have more Chilling with Caleb's to come. I told y'all I was gonna be consistent with it this year. I got y'all. But thank you, genuinely. Keep those thinking caps on, spark conversation. Let's get united as a people. Let's strategize. Let's build infrastructure. And let's understand that these are very serious times. So it requires us to have serious thinking, serious strategy. But once again, I'm blessed to be your host, Caleb Smith. I thank you. I love you. Keep being great, family, and stay blessed. Until next time, peace.